Welcome back, class. So today we are going to proceed towards the last part of this chapter, that is life processes part 2. And here we are going to primarily study the human reproductive system, namely the female and the male version. And also we are going to study about what is the menstruation or what is known as the MC. Okay. So to begin with, let us start with the human reproductive system. So here on your left hand side, you can see a lateral diagram. So I have, for ease of understanding and we want to save the space on board and deliver the maximum out to you, I have drawn a unilateral diagram. So this is, of course, everything is bilaterally symmetrical. So, and one more thing which I wanted to suggest to you is, in biology, it is always better to have a single-sided label diagram, which means that whenever you draw a diagram, either have all the labelings towards the left or towards the right. Of course, in your exams, if this is asked, you will be drawing the complete diagram. You may draw this, or it is better to draw a complete diagram. So after that, either have all the labels on the LHS or the RHS. This is what I prefer, and it will be easier for you also, because when you revise, when you draw a diagram with labels, you will also be able to understand whether you have missed on any organ or organelles. So even the examiner and the students can revise it in one go. So here you see it is so easy to remember with everything on one end. And other suggestion is, I always draw it pointing towards the label, not towards the organ. Now this is a personal choice. You may have the arrowheads over here, but I prefer to have them outside, because when you have to label very close organelles or regions, then the arrowheads might be confusing. And if then, if you draw the diagrams in a hurry, then you might end up losing marks if the arrowhead is at the wrong position. So it is always better to start the arrow from the incident point from the diagram with the arrowhead pointing towards the label. So this shows a male reproductive system. So namely, it has the large proportion of it in the urinary bladder. You know that in males, the ejaculatory duct and the urinary duct are the same. So hence it is known as the urinogenital system in males. Okay. Whereas in females, the tracts are different. So for humans, the major proportion that begins from the top bottom in the urinary bladder, then you have what is known as the vasa efferents and what the vasa deferens. So the vas deferens are the venules or the ducts which will actually convey and transport your sperm. So obviously all of them are going to contribute to it. The sequence is what I will be telling to you soon. So this is your vasa deferens or vas deferens as it is called. These are your seminal vesicles which will actually secrete semen when you ejaculate. Then you have these two very important glands which form a part of the urinogenital duct, that is the prostate gland and the Cooper's gland or the Cowper's gland, whatever you want to pronounce it as. So here these three glands or vesicles, the seminal vesicles form a part of the ejaculatory duct, whereas the prostate gland and the Cowper's gland form a part of the urinogenital duct or in the urinogenital system. So they empty their contents in the urinogenital gland, whereas this seminal vesicle exclusively is going to empty its content into the ejaculatory duct. It is not going to empty its content or the semen into your urinogenital gland. Then you have this portion overlaying the testes, which is your epididymis, and these circular portions that you see are your testes, okay, which will actually produce your sperm. So the process of spermatogenesis. What is spermatogenesis? It is basically synthesis of sperm that takes place. So this spermatogenesis is going to take place in your testes. They are going to be produced as spermatoids, they will mature and eventually they will turn into sperms. So this entire process of synthesis and maturation happens in the testes. Okay. Then you have this scrotum, which is a mechanical barrier, a skin, the lower ending of the testes that line. So this is like the epithelium. Just as you have got skin which protects our underlayer or the skin on your belly. Skin is the largest organ in the human body, of course. It protects everything. It protects your viscera. Who keeps the visceral organs in place? What is visceral organs? All that is there in this region. Your, especially a major part of the digestive system. So what happens is this testes are going to produce your sperms. Now in humans, it is interesting to note that sperms are produced from the onset of maturity. So when we say that boys reach an adolescent age, which was earlier around 18 to 17, but now puberty is striking pretty early, due to lifestyle disorders or the pace at which we are evolving. So puberty usually sets in at around ages of 50, around that thing, so plus minus 2. And then from that stage, your spermatogenesis starts. So your spermatozoa sperms will be produced at that stage, and then you can see that the individual is reproductively capable, or it has got a reproducing capability in terms of males. So that is achieved from an adolescent age, and this process continues till the end. Okay, so till you die, this process will be active and spermatogenesis will keep on occurring. So in humans, it is from the adolescent age, from the puberty, when it gets mature, up till the end. Now, this is just a passing point you may or may not remember. So usually what happens in men post 60s, the prostate gland gets enlarged, which many a times is benign. Benign means it's not harmful. Otherwise, it becomes, cancerous, or then it is harmful. It is known as malignant tumor. The prostate gland increases. Now, what happens is everything in the human body is very finely architectured. So, this increase in the prostate gland is going to have a stress on these vesicles and the urinary tract. So, men have problems passing urine, and it pains a lot. You will think, oh, then what happens? Only the radius or the diameter of the tract or duct will be reduced, but you can still pass it. But no, it is very painful. So, when it is benign, usually certain drugs or anti-hormonal therapies help. But if it is malignant, then you have to get it tested, you have to be put on certain drugs. And despite that, if it doesn't get cured, then you have to surgically remove the prostate gland. Because prostate cancer is also pretty common in the Indian population as well as the men worldwide. So, I told you the prostate corpus gland empty their contents in the urinary tract, whereas the seminal vesicles empty their contents into the ejaculatory duct. And obviously, the organ for copulation and urination, it is the penis, or according to the US if not to pronounce it, it's penis, what they call it. So this organ is responsible for ejaculation of both sperm during copulation and also passing of urine during excretion. So the star mark organs are unpaired. Okay, rest all the organs are paired. So the unpaired organs are the urinogenital duct, that is the prostate gland and the corpus gland. Then you have the scrotum, and then you have the penis, which is unpaired. So it is only one. Though it is a lateral diagram that I have drawn, the second half exists, but it is one organ. Penis is not like left half and right half. It is just one organ, right? So it is unpaired. Similarly, the prostate gland is one. Now, for our ease of understanding and drawing, we have drawn one side. But the gland is always there one. Like your pituitary is one. Do you have two pituitaries in your brain? No. Similarly, these glands are present as one and they are unpaired. And also your scrotum. Scrotum is the sac which bulges out of your abdomen, which holds your testes, right? So that is also unpaired. It is only a single sac. Though you have two testes on the either side, but it is unpaired. It is a single organ. Fine. And the reason why we have it hanging outside the normal human skeleton, not only for human beings but for males of other species as well, is usually spermatogenesis requires a lower body temperature than what you have. So usually the temperature is around 35 to 36 degrees Celsius, because human body temperature we know is 37. So sperms need a lower temperature to be synthesized and stored. This high temperature is going to be deleterious for them. It might lead to their decay and culmination. Hence, the body is so meant that they are mechanically outside the human skeleton. Hence, we have our scrotum or testes hanging out of the body. So it is just not for fun that they are out of the skeleton or we evolved in a way that it has got no reason. Everything that happens has a logic and reasoning behind it. So this is the reasoning for it. Now let us see how does this sperm have its journey from the testes out to the penis. So this is usually the flow chart or the flow diagram that it follows. So first with your red testes or red testes, then that is this organ, right? So they are going to be produced over here and then they will be let out. So they start their journey from here to Vasa efferents to vas deferens, then the thymine vesicle, then T-there content, even the prostate and upper gland. And then finally, to the urinary tract, it is sent out. So this is what is shown here in the flow chart. So please remember it. It will be easy for you to memorize. So first is your epitestes, then you have your vasa efferents, epididymis, the upper layer that I have showed over there over your testes, the vas deferens, then your ejaculatory duct, followed by your urinogenital duct. Now, this is the moment of passage for your sperms. So what do the sperms contain? Of course, they contain the main reproductive gamete, that is sperms or spermatozoa as they are called. Apart from that, they contain a liquid which is known as semen. The semen has got a lot of components. The important component you should remember is fructose. Because I told you, glucose is a readily metabolizable energy source. Immediately after glucose, you have fructose, which is a ketose sugar, hexoketose. So that is going to give energy to the sperm. This is a cell, right? So it needs energy. This is the only motile cell in the human body that we have. They have got a long tail. Now you don't have the structure of sperms for your syllabi, but roughly I tell you it is somewhat like this, So this is the upper body, this is the head, and it has got a very long tail. A very bigly long tail. So this is usually the structure of a sperm. And this is the nucleus. Then you have the head and the proteins, the surface proteins and markers. All of that will be done in your 12th. But just remember out of choice if you want to. And then since it is motile, it requires a lot of energy. See, sugar is there, but how will it metabolize? It needs mitochondria, right? We have seen it in life processes part 1. We have seen respiration. We have also seen what is ETC, the electron transport chain. Where does it occur? I told you glycolysis is in the cytosol. Then the ETC and the rest of the things occur in the mitochondria, in the matrix and in the membrane. So this nucleus of the sperm is lined with a lot of mitochondria. So they are present in large proportions as compared to other cells because they need energy. First of all, they are motile and then they need to migrate until the ovum during copulation or mating. So this is the process of ejaculation of a sperm. This is the diagram for the human reproductive system. I hope you have noted it down. Now let us move forward to what is the female reproductive system and how does the menstruation happen. Fine. So just give me some time to clean the board. So welcome back. So this is now the female reproductive system. This is the image which shows you the female reproductive tract. So there are very basic labelings for your 10th standard right now. When you progress, you'll have it in greater details. So how is this process of ovary maturation development? Before that, let us have some briefing about how does it occur. I told you in males, the spermatogenesis starts at puberty, and in females it is slightly different. So what happens when a female is born? Okay, when a baby child, girl child is born, she is anyway born or by default born with around 2 to 4 million oocytes in her ovary. Now they are not mature, okay, but she is born with those oocytes. In males, they are not born with sperms, right? But they do have these oocytes or ova. Singular ovum, plural is ova. So around 2 to 4 million, imagine. So this is in lakhs, like 2 or 4 into 10 raised to 6 cells. So up till the maturation, that is, so in females, the maturity starts at puberty and it ends with menopause. So menopause is a stage wherein the ovulation is going to stop. The remaining ovaries are going to degenerate, or they are going to undergo a process known as degeneration. So from the stage of maturity until they have the menopause, a ovum or an egg cell is released every month into the uterus by the ovaries through the ovary duct. So I told you they are born with so many. Roughly in a lifetime, a female will only have around 300 to 400 mature oocytes. I mean, every month they will be released. Some of them will be fertilized. If she conceives, if she does not conceive, they will just be shed. So only around 400 mature. The rest of them degenerate. Now, you might wonder, so they degenerate. So what happens during the later stages? Is there any significance from the age at which maturity strikes up till menopause? Definitely yes. That is why in olden days, you see, manages were done at a rice phase. Now, what happens is due to lifestyle disorders, not disorders, but a lot of career orientation, then the urge to earn, to settle down, which is not wrong on certain grounds as well. People usually get married late. So when they get married late, they want to settle late, and then obviously everything becomes late, right? Just as you wake up late for your school or class, and then your entire day is ruined, isn't it? Similarly, over here, what happens? There are certain problems with conceiving the baby, which are known as late pregnancy issues. So what happens in late pregnancy is, see, I told you the female will be born with so many immature oocytes in it. Now they will start maturing and be released one by one from the ovaries through the ovula into the uterus every month. So now what happens during later stages when you are nearing to menopause is they also age. There is something known as senescence. Senescence means cellular aging. Now I am a teen. Sorry, I'm an adult. You are teens these days. So with age, you see our parents, our grandparents, they have got wrinkles around their skin falls loose and becomes flappy. Your skin is more prone to bruises and cuts, wounds don't heal that early. So on and so forth. So these are symptoms of aging. Aging is obviously to do on the cellular scale with cellular replication and cell division. So whenever the cell ages, the cell division is compromised. That is what precisely happens over here. So these ova, which are if the female is ovulating in later stages and she's trying to conceive, the egg cell or the ova has got a defective meiosis, which is why they cannot divide properly. So they don't divide properly. You remember the XY concept which we just did a while ago? We have 22 pairs of somatic chromosomes and 23rd pair is the sex pair or the gametes that are formed. The XY is for males and XX is for females. So when there is improper cell division, what happens is you get certain genetic anomalies known as Down syndrome. So what will happen is the child will have an extra chromosome in that pair. So ideally, I told you X should be a female, a normal functional female, XY should be a male. So now what happens is you get anomalies like triple X, or you get XXY, or you get XYY. So these all three are examples of genetic anomalies, and such children are born with various syndromes. Famous ones are the Down syndrome or the Klinefelter syndrome. You don't need to remember the genetics of them. Just remember these examples for this stage. In your 12th, you will be doing what are these syndromes and what are they caused by. So underlying fact be that the later you conceive, the more chances of you having a problem. So this is a typical female reproductive system wherein ovaries will mature, they will send an ovum or an egg every month through the ovida, okay, into the uterus, which will be implanted. If it is fertilized, it will lead to implanting. That is, a baby will be a genesis of a child or an offspring will start. If it is not the case, it will be shed. And this shedding is known as menstruation or menses, and it is accompanied by. So this is the uterus, which is the womb. So I mean, the baby child will be, if there is fertilization, there is successful ovulation, fertilization, the baby child will be observing in this region, and it will be coming out through the vagina. That is why we call whether a baby is a vaginal birth, that is a natural birth, or a cesarean, that is C-section. Well, this is just a little bit of knowledge for you. Most of you are aware of all of this, but I thought of sharing it with you. Now, let us see in details what is menstruation or the MC, that is menses cycle or the menstruation cycle. So, in your textbook, there is a beautiful diagram given about the vasculature and how it occurs, okay? But this is a flow diagram that I have drawn, and I believe this will be very easy for you to remember and as well as write in the exams, because with all those diagrams and certain glands and hormones, you might find it is very complex, but it is not that difficult. Just as we revise or as we saw how is the journey of a sperm from the testes out through the penis, similarly over here I tell you how the processes occur. So everything starts with the master regulator or the master gland, that is the pituitary, which will be synthesizing and releasing your LH, that is luteinizing hormone, and your FSH, that is the follicle stimulating hormone. The pituitary releases the FSH. So obviously it is in the circulatory system. The target organ is the ovaries. So when it reaches the ovaries, it will signal it to release one ovum or an egg cell. So now what happens is this ovary releases the pair of ovaries. One of them releases an egg cell which is fully grown follicle. So follicle is nothing but something like an egg cell, typically a membrane structure, and will have a nucleus, and this will be an egg cell. Okay. So the ovaries, when the follicle is fully developed, it is fully grown, it is going to be accompanied by estrogen or followed by estrogen production and release. So estrogen is another hormone. So in females, so in males you have just testosterone to take care of. In females you have a lot of hormones. Their orders are equally important. First it starts with the FSH, then you have estrogen and progesterone, and in between you also have this hormone known as the luteinizing, about which I'll tell you soon. So to begin with, I told you the ovaries are going to release this mature follicle to the oviduct of the uterus. This is going to cause estrogen signaling to take place. Now this estrogen that is being released is going to be responsible for your endometrial development. Okay, so this occurs from around 5 to 13 days. So from 5 to 13 days, the endometrium develops. What do I mean by development? The wall will keep it. See, when you want to conceive a baby, you need to have some physical and mechanical structure or solidarity, right? Some strength is what I'm talking about. Like if we hold a baby in hand, like when you meet your cousin, brother, sister, you hold them tight, right? Or do you hold them like a pen like this? You don't hold them like this, right? You cannot. So there needs to be some mechanical strength in the uterus to bear the child. So the estrogen, the endometrial development, it is in extreme details if you go to medical, but for now, just remember it, that it leads to simply thickening of walls and the vasculature. What do I mean by vasculature? Blood vessels will be getting developed. They will be forming and they will be reaching those spaces, the wall that is thickened, because you need nourishment, right? It cannot be just a build-up of blocks. So the endometrium development will take place till around 13 days. Now, meanwhile, what happens is after those 13 days, the luteinizing hormone comes into picture. So this is also released by the pituitary. So now when this is released, it is going to cause ovulation. Ovulation is the release of a mature oocyte from either of the ovaries. See, these are also paired, you have the left and the right. So either of them will be releasing. Very rarely two are released. We will be seeing those conditions later. So during ovulation, one mature ovum will be released. And now this ovum is ready to be implanted into the uterus or the womb. So what happens again, this is known as the corpus luteum. Corpus luteum is the mature ovum that is going to be implanted. So the corpus luteum, this process lasts for around 16 to 28 days. Okay. So the ovum from its stage to maturation to implanting into the endometrium, okay, is going to last for around 16 to 28 days. Again, you can refer to the diagram, but this flowchart is more helpful for you to answer and understand the concept. Okay. So this corpus luteum will also take a fair amount of time development. If you see, it is around 10 to 12 days, right? Initially, the endometrium development has taken place now. The walls have thickened, there is enough vasculature. So there is a foundation that has been laid. Now the ovum is trying to be implanted. It is not yet implanted. So what happens? Then you get the progesterone stimulus. Okay. After fertilization. So now this is the time zone in which it will probably get fertilized with the sperm. So the post 28-day period is critical. I will start market. Okay. So if this is fertilized, progesterone will be coming into picture and it will lead to further endometrial secretions. So only the thickening maturation is not enough. There are further other. See, logically everything has to occur stepwise. Now, if you tell your mom that you are coming for lunch at 2 p.m., she'll be ready with the food, but she won't serve you the plate, right? You have to first come, step into your house, refresh yourself, wash your hands, change your clothes. Then you sit and she'll be making the plate ready for your lunch or meal. Similarly, the initial foundation has been laid, but now the fertilization is still not done. So after the fertilization, the progesterone will come into picture. Now this progesterone will lead to further endometrial secretions, which will make it even more fertile and conducive for the baby child or the embryo to be implanted. Embryo as well, embryo is a much later stage. The fertilized egg to be implanted, and then it is finally ready for implantment, and then we say that a child is conceived and you have a baby child being developed in the womb, and this development takes place for around 9 months, 9 days, right? So then you have it divided into 3 trimesters. Trimester is the cluster of 3 months. So you have usually the first, second, and third, wherein you are supposed to go for a regular checkup. You are supposed to have a diet, because you're dividing. Your body needs a lot of nourishment and nutrition. Females are usually given folic acid tablets, then given iron tablets, because you need a lot of blood also. Because now that baby biologically, okay, is like a parasite on the female body, because it's surviving on her nutrients, right? It is surviving in her body. So it is an offspring, but like in technical terms, it grows like a parasite in the body. Of course, for social reasons and otherwise, we don't term the baby as a parasite. Nobody would. But the mode of living is parasitic, because the baby cannot fend for itself. Do you see the baby cooking and eating in the womb? No, that's impossible. So this is the process of development. Now, tell me, what if it doesn't fertilize? If there is no population, if there is no breeding, so what happens then? Then there is this menses. So if this corpus luteum after maturation is not fertilized within 24 hours, okay, then it turns into what is known as corpus albicans. So a very narrow window over here you see, just 1 day. Now this corpus albicans is going to immediately lead to go is going to lead to deregulation or lowering of progesterone as well as estrogen levels. So both of these hormones will immediately drop. Now with progesterone gone, there is going to be no further endometrial secretion, it will stop. With estrogen gone, even the initial development that was happening will stop. So both the processual pathways are being inhibited. So with this corpus albicans, the signaling is towards lowering of progesterone and estrogen, which finally leads to menses or menstruation. So this entire endometrial wall and thickening that happened along with that unfertilized egg is going to be thrown off from the female body. So it is going to be excreted out, and this is usually accompanied by a lot of bleeding. Hence we call it menses. And this cycle repeats itself every month. The menses lasts for around 4 to 5 days. Where there is bleeding, the females have a lot of cramps. They suffer from mood swings, so on and so forth. So this menses begins roughly around 29 days. So I told you it is on a 30-day cycle, right? So after the menses, it will be again back to square one from 1. So after 1, within first 4 days, there will be regeneration, development, reseeding of the just as you lay a land before farming. So similarly, there will be this cleanup, little bit of regeneration, tissue synthesis that will be happening, and then again from the 5th day onward, you have this FSH, the ovary, the estrogen signaling, and then the endometrial development. That is why this continues in a cyclic manner. Hence, we call it the cycle, the menstruation cycle. And till when does it continue? It continues up till the menopausal age. So what is menopause? Menopause is nothing but an age up till which the female can successfully or biologically ovulate. So I just write this term over here, menopause. So what happens at menopause? Your menstruation cycle stops. Okay, or it becomes very, very irregular. So this is an important phase in any female's life. So after that, she is going to be incapable of conceiving a baby child. So this was to sum up the female reproductive system and importantly the menstruation. Now apart from that, there are certain modern day technologies that we follow or can adopt to bear a child, even if you are slightly overage or incapable of bearing a child. And then we also have this concept of twins. So just wait for a moment. So I was telling you about the modern concepts through which you can still conceive a baby even if you are having certain biological problems or other issues. So in modern day technology, we have these three main processes or methods that you could utilize to conceive a baby despite your limitations. Now, the first is the foremost, which is very popular and equally costly, is your IVF, that is in vitro fertilization. Second is surrogacy, or also you can call it as surrogacy. The third one is the utilization of sperm and semen banks. So let us begin with what is meant by IVF. So IVF, as the name suggests, in vitro means in glass. Vitro or vitreous means something pertaining to glass or plastic these days. So whenever the fertilization occurs ex vivo, vivo means in body, in cell. So whenever it is outside the organism, it is going to be in some medium, that is in vitro, right? So whenever this fertilization is being carried out in vitro in external conditions, of course to stimulate the environment so as to it mimics the natural conditions, then it is known as IVF. So what you do is you take one sperm cell or a group of sperms and an egg cell, make it conducive. Usually it is also treated to make it receptive. Many a times there are certain problems. The sperm cell will have that here, this and that, and then it will be fusion of the gametes. There are some videos which you could watch if you're interested. But what I need to say underlying here is there are a lot of factors which do affect fertilization, and all of this is to overcome that. Right. So IVF is external fertilization using an egg and a sperm. So usually the egg is taken from the female, from the pair of the husband and wife. So the female will give her egg and the male will give the sperm or female, and the fertilization will be carried out externally. Now after this, there is going to be zygote formation, and then there is up till the stage of embryo. So once the zygote is formed, it is very carefully implanted into the uterus or the womb. Now this also takes a lot of synchronization, right? I told you the interplay of hormones that is so critical and precise. The female has to be receptive during that stage, or then she has to be externally put on a hormonal therapy in order so that she accepts. See, if she is in menses and you try to implant this is not going to work, isn't it? So this all has to be very critically planned. So this is your IVF. Basically, external fertilization of an egg with a sperm. Then you have this concept of surrogacy. So what is surrogacy? Surrogacy is when you actually, the female is unable to bear a child or conceive a child with a lot of limitations. There can be certain difficulties like PCOD, or then there are even other certain physical limitations that the couple might have. So then you resort to what is known as surrogacy. So after IVF, what is done is usually the zygote or the embryo is implanted into some other female for development. Okay, so she is going to be the child bearing entity, or she is going to be the caretaker of that child in the womb. So until the child develops, it is in some other female's womb. So she is the mother for 9 months, and then afterwards the child is handed over. So all this procedure is very, very legal. The female opting for surrogacy cannot have a claim on the child. All this is legal. It is black on white. So this is the concept of surrogacy. It can also work either way. So if the male has got certain problems like azoospermia, etc., or whatever it is, IVF is the first method of choice. If that also doesn't work, then the male, you can have sperm from a other male counterpart, and then you can either get it implanted in your womb, so on and so forth. So this is the concept of surrogacy. Usually we studied with the female perspective in mind, but it could also be the other. So when you get a surrogate mother for the child. Then you have something known as the sperm or the semen banks. Now what happens is usually desirous males, or if you know you have got healthy genes, just if you donate blood, you can also donate your semen. And then this can be utilized by people who want it and they want to conceive the child. Now, due to obvious legal reasons, the name is kept secret. So you, even if you donate it, you are a smart generation, you're probably Gen Alpha, Gen Z kids. So you must have known about or seen the movie Wiki Donor. Now we have got the fun part, but what science I want to convey through it is, so you can donate your sperm or semen, and this is kept safe, stored in sperm banks. Okay, they have got cryopreservation methods for it. And then this is given to desirous couples who are unable to conceive. So as I told you, that if the male counterpart is not able to produce enough sperm, or if the sperm is not of a good quality. Either the azoospermium, they are immotile, if they are less in number, there are various terminologies for it. So if that is the case, whatever it might be, then you can go to a sperm bank and get the sperm donated. I mean, accepted, you can get that sperm and still conceive a child. Now here also there are two methods. Either there is artificial insemination, you can get it inserted, or you can then resort to this IVF followed by implant. So a lot of methods, it's a matter of choice and money. Then, so this is about modern day technology. Then I had told you what happens after fertilization. So the XY concept is already clear in our mind, 23 pairs, right? So now what happens is there is this twin concept which we have to look into. So the twin concept is with reference to monozygotic and dizygotic. What do I mean by monozygotic twins? So very rarely what happens after 8 days of development. Okay, so today consider there is fertilization. So the egg and the sperm have fused. Now they will undergo development. So it is going to lead to a 2-cell stage, 4, 8, 16, so on and so forth. So very rarely what happens in the first 8 days, the zygote divides, physically divides. There are 2 masses or 2 lumps of cells, and they develop individually. Now these are known as monozygotic twins because they split from the fusion of the same egg and sperm. So the ancestor is the same. Analogically, you can relate it to how we studied binary fission in prokaryotes in our first chapter, the first part of this chapter. So there I told you the parent cell is lost. There is no ancestor because the cell divides. So here also that ancestor is going to divide into 2 halves, that is 2 zygotes. So these 2 zygotes are individually going to develop, and since it is from the single division of an egg and sperm, they are going to be genetically exactly identical. Which by default means their genders also will be the same. Right? So the problem with this is you many a times get congenital twins or Siamese twins. You can Google out. So Siamese twins are famous examples. So usually what happens is there certain body parts will be joined. Either their viscera will be joined, or their legs will be joined, or their brains. So they have a lot of problems if the cells do not completely divide and detach. Okay. So they have problems. They even have certain organs in common. The heart will be only present in one individual, and the other individual will have no heart, will just have lungs. So is the case with liver, and there are a lot of problems which they have in survival because it is like 2 bodies joined together. So apart from that, if otherwise monozygotic twins are born, congenital twins, they are survived, they are fit to grow, they are able to reproduce, and they lead a very normal life. Then, what is this concept of dizygotic twins? So what happens very rarely, 2 ovaries release 2 ova, okay, simultaneously. So when these 2 eggs are released, both of them very rarely get fertilized by 2 different sperms. So it is like 2 phenomena occurring in the same environment. So obviously everybody will have a chance in it. So these 2 individuals are obviously genetically different. Since they are different, they may or may not have the same gender. So even if there are 2 male children born or 2 female children born, their genetics is essentially going to be different. So this is the concept of dizygotic. Always remember it as a difference, so it is easier for you to remember. Then we have this concept going ahead of what is known as population explosion. Figure and data have been very well highlighted in your textbooks. Just see them. I told you countries like certain countries in Africa, India, China, we are or have actually exceeded the carrying capacity of our country, and that is why there is a lot of pressure on the natural resources that we have. So this is your concept of population explosion. That is why I have on purpose written it as a part of the The data and all you're not supposed to memorize. Just look through so that you will understand, and the emphasis is to be laid on how do we have certain birth control programs or limit our breeding potential. That's it. So that was all for now. Hope you enjoyed this chapter. It has been a lengthy journey, but enjoyable one. So see you until next time. Goodbye.